We've been flying since the first hint of daylight, and the sun is now far down in the western sky as we circle the body of water far below us. Though we have ridden a fierce north wind most of the day, weariness makes our wings heavy. Twice we have bypassed promising lakes after being alerted to danger by our experienced leader. He's a magnificent bird, well past his prime, but he can still fly with the best of the young geese. He's been my mate for many winters. For the most part, we've had a good life, flying north to Canada in the spring to hatch our young, and then back south with the first hint of winter. But twice, we lost offspring to the deadly guns of the hunters. Through the driving snow, I now see a cluster of geese huddled against a marshy bank at the far end of the lake. Being surrounded by grain fields, it promises not only a sheltered resting place, but sustenance as well. We will not find a better place to spend the night, of that I'm sure. Mordecai leads us in a wide circle around the end of the lake and the adjoining field, alert for any sign of danger. Though I see nothing to cause alarm, I cannot shake a nagging sense of dread. From the lake below comes the faint honking of geese at rest. It is the all-clear signal, but I take no comfort in it, nor does Mordecai. Well do I remember another day, not much different from this. We had ridden a cold front out of Canada, and as the sun slid far down the curve of the earth, we set our wings and began the long glide toward the water below. We were about to touch down when two hunters emerged from beneath a sheet of white canvas with guns blazing. Instantly, Mordecai veered left, his wide wings clawing the heavy air as he fought for height. Our firstborn was flying on his right wing just behind him in tight formation. When Mordecai veered left, he followed, taking the full load of shot intended for his father. I watched in helplessness and rage as his lifeless body folded and plunged into the water below. Other birds were dying too, 5 in all, but I had eyes only for my firstborn. The hunter's guns continued to boom a moment more, spitting out orange flame and deadly shot into the indigo sky above the slate-colored lake. I took a couple of pellets in one leg, sending a flash of burning pain to explode in my brain, but it was nothing compared to the awful ache in my heart. Riding the winds, I followed the others into the safety of the wide sky, but when they turned south, I lingered behind. After they were gone, I continued to circle overhead just out of range of the guns below. I watched as the hunters began slapping each other on the back, shouting with glee before splashing through the frigid water to collect their prey. This is on my mind as Mordecai leads us in an ever-tightening circles, and on his as well, I'm sure. He has never been able to forgive himself for that earlier debacle, though what we could have done differently, I don't know. The fact that our firstborn took the shot intended for him has been nearly more than he can bear. Although everything appears to be in order, Mordecai hesitates, still generating a rumbling of protest from some of the younger males. They resent Mordecai's caution, but those of us who have known the terror of the hunter's guns appreciate it. Suddenly, Absalom, a 2-year-old goose of magnificent proportion, breaks formation, begins a long glide toward the waters below. For a moment, no one follows. Then 4 or 5 of the younger birds give chase. Mordecai hisses a stern warning while the flock emits a scolding chorus. Both are ignored. As the renegade geese near the water, the marsh grass seems to explode, ripping the pale evening sky with jagged apricot flashes. Absalom takes a full load in his chest and explodes in a tangled mass of blood and feathers. Behind him, the young geese veer off in all directions, frantically pounding their wings in a desperate attempt to escape the hunter's reign of death. Some hug the water while others seek the safety of the sky. Jonathan takes a hit in his left wing and lurches crazily before plunging into the lake. Abigail is down, as is Esther. Only Obadiah escapes, and he carries pellets in his legs. The hunters emerge from a well-concealed blind, clothed from head to toe in camouflage gear. One of them spots Jonathan, who is trying to hide in the tall marsh grass. Taking aim at him, he shoots, and Jonathan dies while we watch in stunned disbelief. There is nothing we can do, so Mordecai turns once more toward the south, and we fall into formation, death having left several jagged holes. Below us, the hunters remove their decoys, collect the bodies of their fallen comrades, and troop across the field to go to their 4x4s. As a boy, I considered hunting geese a great sport, a rite of passage to manhood, if you please. So I could hardly wait until I was old enough to go on my first goose hunt. In preparation, I read everything I could find on goose hunting. I learned that the most successful goose hunters utilize blinds, decoys, and goose calls. The blind is constructed from materials indigenous to the area where they will be hunting. Often it is prepared well in advance of hunting season so the geese can become accustomed to it. On the day of the hunt, the hunters usually arrive well before daylight. Quietly, they position their decoys to resemble geese who are feeding at rest. Once they are in place, the hunters retreat into the blind where they are able to watch for incoming geese without being seen. When a high-flying flock is spotted, one of the hunters uses a goose call to lure them in by imitating the all-clear honk of the geese. By nature, geese are wary. They will circle for a long time before landing to feed. As they circle, they're constantly alert for anything that might signal danger. An unnatural goose call, a poorly positioned decoy, or the premature movement of a hunter in the blind. The skillful hunter patiently waits his goose call, enticing the flock ever closer. If the hunter is successful in deceiving them, the geese will eventually set their wings, glide toward the decoys. Of course, when they come within range, the hunters begin shooting from their blind, making short work of those magnificent birds. Now that I am grown, I no longer think of hunting geese as sport. Rather, I see it as a parable of temptation. Like the goose hunters of my childhood, the tempter studies his unsuspecting prey, and with clever genius he builds his blinds. He sets out his decoys, ever luring the unsuspecting toward the trap which he has prepared. Every day when you wake up, God has a will for you, and so does the devil. Every day that you live, the devil has set traps for you to fall in. God has allowed the enemy to tempt us, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Take your outlines there, and we've got quite a bit to cover. First thing we see in this text in James 1, 13 through 18 is the source of temptation. Look at verse 13. Let no one say when he is tempted, I'm being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself does not tempt anyone, but each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. James starts by saying, who is not responsible for your